Well, hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me on another episode. Here's another update. I shared with you guys weeks ago that this story that I've been covering about what appears to be changes in the succession plan happening at the Potter's House main campus, that I was going to be following and I was going to be covering that story, right? And so today I want to just focus on Jake's. Jake's preached today at the Potter's House. Again, his sermon is widely available on their YouTube channel. Sometimes they upload, for those of you who sometimes maybe feel like you can't find certain things, sometimes they upload them later, and so you have to catch it on the live stream when it's actually happening. And then sometimes whoever runs their social media, they will put things up later, and sometimes they're up immediately. It just depends on, I don't know, whatever schedule they've got going over there. But on today's episode, I want to talk to you and share with you my thoughts on Jake's sermon today. We talked about this last week, that obviously there's some financial things going on over there because Jake's, as he addressed Drewski's, clowning those in leadership who take advantage of God's people, right, in his BET skit, and Jake's responded to that. He actually turned around and did exactly what Drewski said. He then told the people, we're about to go into a season of giving. A season, winter, spring, fall, right? These are seasons. They don't last just one day. Seasons are just that. They're seasons. And so I expect to see Jake's up at the Potter's House for the next several weeks, as long as his health allows him to, as he's priming the people to give. Today, last week, which was really sad, and I said to myself, they must be really hurting over there, maybe even on the verge of losing their building, because there was one time earlier this year when the highest amount he would start asking the people for was $700. Last Sunday, he started with $5,000. What does that mean? That means things are bad. It's just, remember, it's just common sense. If I ask you for $500, I need five. But if I start off with $5,000, that means I'm in a bad situation. I need more money that 500 is not going to cover, And so, by the way, let me just say this, because I like to encourage people to think, and sometimes I see that is just, I don't know. I don't want to be offensive, but it does appear that sometimes people struggle. Some of us struggle to comprehend. Some of us struggle to think. I know several people were asking me, how could they lose a building they own? You know what? If I have to answer that, I'm going to scream. When we've already talked about, if you own something, you can use it as collateral. And if you can't pay back the loan, come on. Y'all, let me tell you something. It's 2026, and, I don't mind speaking elementary to our young folks who are in their early 20s because they need it. But sometimes I just think, why don't people just Google some of the stuff that they want to ask? Why should I have to explain to a fully grown man or a fully grown woman how someone can lose something they own? Don't you have a car? Have you ever known anyone take out a title loan on their car and then you can actually lose what you own? Geez. You see why sometimes I don't respond to people's comments? Sometimes they're just silly. Sometimes they don't make any sense. Sometimes people just didn't think. Sometimes people are just, Anyway. So I expect to see Jake's up a lot, because he told them last week, what he was doing. We're about to go into a season of giving. That means it's going to be many weeks of this man asking these people for money, and it's sad. So let's talk about today. I have to say, let me start with something positive. I have to say, for me, when I was watching the sermon today, that it was good to see Dexter there. It was good to see Cora. It was actually good to see Jake's sister, Jackie. I know a lot of you didn't know, when I had mentioned before that he had a brother and a sister. A lot of you said you didn't know that. Well, again, guys, we have to remember that not everyone wants to be public, okay? Some people want a quiet life. They want to be able to ride their motorcycle in peace. They want to be able to go shop at Target in peace. They don't want folks bothering them. They don't want folks watching their every move. They don't want people saying, oh, that's Jake's sister. Look at her. What is she doing? Let me go film this and upload it to social media. Some people don't want that. It's kind of like what we talked about with Dexter. Not every person who's public do their children want that kind of life, because being public and being a well-known person like some of these people, a lot of these people we've heard them talk about it. We've talked about this in our community when I played certain clips of various celebrities. It's a very lonely life, because then you don't know who to trust, who's really trying to be your friend versus who wants something from you, who's trying to marry your daughters because they actually love your daughters versus who's just trying to get next to you, right? Because they feel like God's got a call on their life, right? And so there's all kinds of things that you have to watch for when you're a public person that you don't have to deal with when you are living a normal, regular citizen type life. And some people want that. And I actually respect people who don't want all that public mess, because it's not what people think. I think I was watching an interview where Cora said that. She said, it's not what people think it is, and it's not. All people see is the glitz and glamour, but there's a whole lot that goes on that's not envious whatsoever. And so it was good to see his sister. So it was good to see, and Sarita, it was good to see the family coming together. They know that Daddy's health is not the way it was, and he's not even the way he was even 3 months ago. And so it was good to see them all there supporting each other, right? So what was so interesting to me is because he told them last Sunday they're going into a season of giving. Every sermon, we do understand, and it's sad that those people don't know this though, but every sermon now from start to finish is going to be designed to ultimately culminate in getting money out of the people, which his sermon was today. He talked about Luke 10:38, and then guess what he asked the people for at the end of that sermon? Can you guess? You know how it goes. Sow a seed of $138 in honor of Luke 10:38. You see, every sermon is going to be designed over this season to do exactly what the sermon did today. That's sad. It's sad, y'all. You know what I was thinking about when I was watching his sermon today? That these people are trying to carry on when it's obvious that God's hand is no longer there. You see, then you have to do these manipulative things, right? All of us know what it feels like to freely give. When you've heard something that really has helped you, moved you, nobody has to make a ploy. Nobody has to even ask us for. I've done this, haven't many of you? Yeah, we've all been there. When someone's really shared something with you that, whoa, that really helped me. Whoa, you freely give. It's in your heart. It's in my heart. We just give. And that's God, when we are freely giving what we want to give from our hearts, right? But when people have to cajole and they have to manipulate and create a sermon from start to finish solely designed to get money out of the people, guys, why can't those folks in that crowd see it? And y'all know what I'm always doing. Anytime they pan, I'm watching. And it's mostly, it's mostly black women. And I just wonder what's going on. But we've talked about that before. That most of those women, not all, but most of those women are single women. And when we've talked about this before in our community, when you understand why the single woman is more easily taken advantage of financially than the married woman or the woman who has a man in her life, maybe it's a father, it could be an uncle, a grandfather who's watching over her. Those women are men don't like to try to get money out of those types of women because they know they got to go through a man. But there's some man, if he's not visible there's some man guiding that woman. And I don't mean guiding because a woman needs it, so I hope no one takes it that way. I'm talking about emotional protection right now. That's what I'm talking about, right? There's a barrier. I gave a great homework thing for the young girls. I said, if you want to understand what I'm talking about, and we've talked about this before, I said, you know how at the convenience store, there's the man standing by the door sometimes who's asking people for money. And I don't mean the homeless man, I just mean the lazy man. That's his hustle. Or the man who's popped his trunk in the parking lot saying, look, I've got the perfume and the weave. Watch the women that he will make his pull to versus the ones he won't. If a woman's got a man with her, he lets her walk right by. If he sees a wedding ring on the woman's hand, he lets her walk by. See, what is that? Men understand there's a man somewhere that could get me in trouble. But if a woman's single, you see, easy prey. And so it's really sad because when you look at the crowd of people, it's mostly older, single black women who are sitting, with other women. So there was no man there, right? And it's sad, but that's what he did today. And every Sunday, as I said, is going to be the same thing. When I was watching him too, I was afraid at one point that he would fall down. Did any of you guys feel that way who was watching it? I felt like he might, I felt like even when his family, when I say they, Cora, Sarita, Dexter, I feel like one of the reasons why they were so intently watching is because they too wanted to just make sure if something were to happen, they could be right there. So when he got ready to take off his jacket, I don't know what they thought, but Dexter ran over there. And, but just even watching the way Jakes was walking, it's very obvious, y'all, that Jakes probably shouldn't be up preaching. I wonder what his doctors have told him. I wonder if they've said, don't preach. Get somewhere and sit down. He had a chair up there, which is not unusual for older preachers to have chairs up there because, well, you can't stand as long as you used to, and if your health is bad, one can't. But yeah, I mean, this man is totally different than who he was 3 months ago. He doesn't even move the same as he did 3 months ago. And that's sad to see, but my greater point is that these people can see God is no longer in this, and that's why you got to manipulate and cajole, and you've got to work much harder to get people even to give $138. You got to start manipulating from top to finish. And you know what? Shame on all of those choir people. Those people in the choir, whatever they are, they know what he's doing. Why be a part of that? Why be a part of the emotional cajoling, getting people high in their emotions, getting people to run, scream, and jump, and then tell them to calm down now, let me ask you for the money. I'm going to say this. Be aware of people who want to get you highly emotional. Normally, they're about to try to sell us something. You want to know something else? When I was thinking about this, I don't know why this came to me. Maybe because I was getting ready to do a story on her last week and I decided against it. I was watching in my research Iyanla Vanzant. I was watching some of her interviews and some of her, I guess, things that she does from home, right? I forgot whatever her little community is called. And I noticed that same thing with her. And I thought, Lord have mercy, to be in your 70s and still have to be hustling people out of money. Dang it, right? Dang it. Is that the way we're supposed to be, y'all? In our 70s, and we're still got to hustle. Jake's in his late 60s. You still got to hustle folks out their money? I mean, when is enough enough? When do we say, I have enough? When do we say, you know what? I'm going to liquidate some of the things I have. This overconsumption of stuff, this greed, to where you have people in their late 60s and 70s who've made enough money, more than most of us will see in our lifetimes, and they're still out here hustling people. And it's not necessarily because they need it. Now, in the case of Jake's, there are bills over there at that building. I didn't tell y'all about that, right? But I remember just last Sunday, he told the folks, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in toilet paper, right? But it's sad. As I get ready to let you go, when I was talking to you on the other episode about Torre letting the people know, he let it slip, that something's happening in September. There's going to be some sort of restructuring, realignment in September. We're going to have to watch and see, is this a main campus restructuring? Remember, we've been talking about the last few weeks that something's going on over there. There's a change happening in leadership. Exactly what it's going to look like may have something to do with how far along Sarah's recovery is. She wasn't there today. I know a lot of you who are watching the live stream, you see her and Torre. Those are pre-filmed introductory things that they do. They're not actually there, right? But she wasn't there today, and that's good, right? She shouldn't have been there all the other days. But I think a lot of whatever they're trying to do is dependent on how her recovery goes, right? Will Sarah recover to a point where she can preach full-time in the pulpit the way she was? We know that they moved. We didn't talk about this since a few weeks ago. Remember, we talked about Woman Evolve, right? That they wanted to postpone it. Well, they have now until next year, next summer. And so people can get a refund if they want, but everything is just going to turn over to next year. So if people want to just leave it the way it is, which most people will, you don't have to try to get a refund. You can just say next year's already paid for or whatever. But I think a lot of these things, and so I wonder, what does September have to do with Sarah's recovery? Is there some sort of date the doctors have given her? All I know is that we need to be watching this. There's so much that can be learned from the way these people are handling this situation. If you're a business person, there's a lot to be learned. If you're a church pew person, if you're in church leadership, what not to do, what to do. But as I said, it was good seeing the family support each other today, but it was sad seeing how manipulative Jakes is. And I just thought to myself, why can't they just leave it alone? Refer those people out and have done with it. I mean, at 69, you're still hustling, folks, out of $138 freaking dollars, preaching the same old sermons. Luke 10:38, now you give $138. Why are people still falling for that crap, y'all? Why? At any rate, I'll be keeping an eye on it, and I'll be bringing another update when I feel that it's necessary. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Leave your thoughts below, especially if you were able to catch the live stream. What did you think about him starting out the text talking about Martha and Mary, right? And then he went and manipulated them, and then he got down to asking them for the money. I mean, it was a whole setup, and it was sad. It was sad from start to finish. I'll talk to you on the next one.